dialogues, conversations on whatever the exhibition at the time which is going on, and obviously there's related facets to all kinds of exhibitions. Dialogue, we start with an old childhood friend of mine, who's also one of the very finest actors of theatre and cinema. He's had a unique role. It's an evolving journey for all actors, and you make certain choices. Those choices are not always in resonance with the nature of the subject, and he's been a very brave, courageous, dedicated actor, a man who loves his craft, who has not played to a large extent the nature of the mainstream acting traditions in India. I still remember at school, there was school annual day, and we all had to do some kind of performance. And for some reason, we chose the song Mehbooba, Mehbooba in Sholay. And I was Helen, and he was,
His hair was still long. Only there was no white at that time.
What's the name of the guy who played the
Jalal Agha.
Jalal Agha. So that haunts me in my life, that moment where I danced and cavorted in front of the whole school, not realizing the foolishness of that act. But
It wasn't foolish.
no, I know.
Innocent energy.
It was an innocent energy. But today we will talk on slightly more elevated ideas. And Rajit, I like to start with, first of all, your first love, which is theatre. And that also essentially theatre in the English language, which in India has been for a very small elite audience. And how did that start? Was it from childhood, or was it a deliberate choice, or did you realize you would be able to spread out in other languages? Because you've done cinema in Bengali, Malayalam, Punjabi, English, and a few other languages, Marathi. So tell me, how did that theatre journey start with you?
Do with school and college, performing in front of an audience, whether it was dance, music, singing, elocution, and it just kind of veered and steered its way towards drama and theatre. So it was a gradual process without having me to look at it like as if it was planned. It just happened. I think the seriousness of it only struck me when I was in college doing my BCom, which I just did because I didn't know what else to do. But there, getting involved with the local theatre group in the college, I realized that, this is something I really love and enjoy.
What is it about theatre which you loved? Is it the live, immediate, instinctive, that anything can happen?
Backstage, it was instinctive. Now, when I look back, I find it so fulfilling. And I would say that is what has helped me to stay grounded as a person, because you're working with a team and there has to be trust if you want to work out something together. At the same time, much more than film, it brings you down to ground zero every time, because you always have to start afresh. Personally, for me, it's also been meditative in a way, because it channelizes all your energies, your concentration points and focus, because you have to be aware of so many things. There are various levels of awareness, and they have to all be integrated finally when you're on that path.
So let's start with diction, because you always had a lovely diction and you had a great energy with words. How did that evolve in your life?
In school, that's because of elocution. Because we had so much of elocution and debate that was integrated into our education system. And it's a very important thing that you're saying, because I find the next generation of actors do not enunciate. Half the time, I can't hear what they are saying, whether on stage or on film.
It's garbled. It's just not enunciating.
And you feel it's important as a part of the craft of acting?
Yes, it's important. And people think, oh, it's important in theatre, stage when you have a live audience. No, I think it's even important for film because there are many film actors also in trying to be internal and internalizing a character, but their speech, it's a very, very specific skill, which we are lucky because of our school that we managed to have teachers who guide us.
Elocution today is, I think, it's non-existent by and large.
Non-existent.
And
What
so
we had
Now, instead of elocution, in a lot of institutions, how to give a speech. And I'm saying before you learn to give a speech, but you have to learn about speech, no?
yeah, and the diction. But let's focus a bit on theatre. When you realize that the English language theatre could only reach so far, was there hesitation in you to want to get out of that, to change that?
Yes.
What happened?
So gradually, what happened was starting out with very sort of English plays, we started moving towards Indian English, the way you and I speak, although we are influenced by the British in our enunciation and enunciation. I mean, we come from an Indo-Scottish school.
Cathedral is this school. We keep on referring to Cathedral and John Connon.
And therefore, our plays then began to be rooted and set in art. So, and the first experiment we did, which was on a play called I'm Not Bajirao, which is inspired from I'm Not Rappaport, which had a huge run across the globe in England and America. And we Indianized it. It was in English, but it's the English that you and I speak with a smattering of maybe Hindi, Gujarati, Marathi. It became more relatable.
And you were very lucky, or maybe it was a choice. You had a lovely small team, Rahul Dakuna, Shehnaz Patel, even Rahul Bose was part of it initially.
Yes.
And there were a couple of others that slip my mind now. Tell me about this team and how it came together.
So we formed.
Rahul was also at school with us.
Yes.
Barham
Rahul
House.
Bose was 1 year.
No, Rahul
junior,
Dakuna.
And Rahul Dakuna was 1 year senior.
Yeah.
So they both were with us. We formed Rage in 1992.
The seed was sown around March, and I remember we opened the bank account in November 1992 with no money. There were 8 of us, and so accounts I had to handle.
Who were the 8, just for documentation purposes?
Was Rahul Dakunia, Rahul Bose, myself, Shanaz Patel, Radhika Mittal was married to Rahul. She worked for advertising now. There was set designer Fali Unwala and actor and host Kunal Vidit. So this was Rage. And we used to meet, occasionally in each other's houses and read plays, something that would excite us. And then we would go and watch what others were doing. And we said, no, we don't want to do it this way. We want to do it this way. That's how the thought germinated. Why don't we just form a company? What about funding? So I said at least to open the bank account for on every getty. 7 of us, sorry, 8. So I asked for 10,000 rupees and we all opened the big production account with 14,000 to kick off.
1999.
In 1992 November, the bank account was open. And we had to open the bank account because we had decided on the first show that we want to do. It was a play called Are There Tigers in the Congo? And in August, some of us had seen that in the Edinburgh Festival. And because at that time, aid was the huge issue which was bothering people, there was so much of angst about it. So this play was about 2 writers who were talking about aid. There are 2 writers writing about AIDS, and in the middle of it, when the layers unfold, you realize that one of them could be infected or was out. So it was very topical at that time.
Let's just stop there for a minute, because the nature of getting into a role and coming to Gandhiji from that time of being a theatre actor, there's a process in which you have to immerse yourself into the role. There's a detachment or there's an engagement, depends on what kind of methodology you follow. How much did those days of the Tiger days, Love Letters, Class of '84, I remember. And then your role in making of the Mahatma. Do you remember any part of the connection, or was it just one continuous journey which you never saw jumps in?
It was a continuous journey, Neville, but I think that entire grounding of having, uh, maybe struggle is the wrong word, but having been at it with play after play and exploring myself as an actor. And even at that time, of course, the dream was there to do film, but it was difficult to connect with film directors or producers. There was no system. Even now, there was no way of speaking. But it happened that somewhere in June, Mr. Shyam Benegal saw Love Letters at the experimental theatre at MCK, and I mean, he came backstage and shook my hand, and I was elated, And he said, "I'll get in touch with you." But I didn't realize that next day I'll get a call, and he said, "I'm working on a film, and you come and meet me." He had only one question on the telephone: "Can he speak Hindi?" So I said, "Aap azma ke dekh." And I went the next day to his office, and see the humility of the man. I mean, if he had told me to play a tree, and but here we were trying to reach him, Shanaz and me, to go to his office and meet him. It never happened. But here he was calling me, and he just gave me the script, and he said, "Ye padho and come back to me." And he's the role of Manik Mullah. "ठीक है sir, I'll come back to you as soon as I can." And I went home and I read it, and it was the lead role. And I said, "Oh my God!" And I called 10210. Then I said, "He's asking me to do the lead role." They said, "Are you mad? What do you have to? You have nothing to say to say. Hey, go ahead." But then he wanted to test it. Well, my fortune, that good fortune, that I found I suddenly had the opportunity to perform with real wonderful performers, actresses who I still rate at probably the highest in the country. And I was working with Deep Team, my Paspil, Kuwa they say. So there was Rajeshwari Satdev, who's still a very, very dear friend. And just recently, she played my daughter when I was playing Sardar Patel for a series for Doordarshan. Then there was Pallavi Joshi, who also played the Surba with me in Making of the Mahatma, and Nina Gupta, with whom 25 years later I did a film called The Threshold, where this middle-aged couple, and their separation.
So let us focus on two things. One, Shyam, and two, the gap between an actor having very little celebrity quotient, but needing to be this great actor in their own mind, which is one of the hardest things. There are thousands of actors, and a handful ever get that public love and acclaim on that level. So let's first start with Shyam, because that's your most abiding relationship. And without that, your relationship with cinema could have been radically... No. Something else would have come.
Something else.
But it would not have taken this trajectory.
Not this trajectory,
Right.
yeah.
So his humility, we both are aware of that. He had a very refined intelligence. I remember once when I was on my infrastructure building journey, I said, "Baba, each filmmaker is an infrastructure builder. Look what you have to do every time." He says, "Neville, I never see it like that." So my first thoughts about him were that he was so immersed in filmmaking and he loved it deeply. What was the greatest quality for you that he nurtured as a director?
Neville, there are so many, because that man is an institution, number one, on a generic level. You could talk to him about any topic under the sun, and he had that knowledge. He was a man who first introduced me to Japanese food, by the way, in South Africa when we were doing Making of the Mahatma. But his love for actors, his patience, humility we already know, and his knowledge of the craft and his sensitivity towards actors, and that for me was apparent on the first day of my shooting for Suraj Ka Satwa Ghoda. On that first day, I will give you 3 examples. I think the night before, it was August. I think it was my birthday the night before, so I was out very late. So I was exhausted when I came. And he must have known through the assistant, his daughter, so I was told to just sleep for another 2 hours. No, very small thing, but helped my energy. Second, we were shooting in such a small room, and there were 100 people surrounding the little room where we were shooting, and there were these hawk-like eyes all at me, Naya Londa aaya hai, dekhiye kya karta hai, kind of feeling. I could sense that in the atmosphere. He sensed my nervousness, and he just came and he held my hand and says, "Son, I think you're nervous. We'll wait for 10 minutes. Small thing goes a long way. Then I think on the second day, I had a very important scene. And you know, a director usually has a shot division and breakup. Okay, so this scene from this angle, we'll do it from here to here. And somewhere he saw that I don't know whether carried away, but I was going on. I had got into a kind of a trance in that moment, and he didn't say cut. And I was hoping that he wouldn't stop me, because suddenly I felt something happening. And I could see from the corner of his eye, he told his crew, I could just see his hands, don't stop him. And that moment is there in the film, and something happened, and it's magical. But he sensed that there and then. It's not that he was looking, you know, most people now just look at the monitor. He was seeing physically what's happening there between us actors, and his hands just went up. Now again, that sensitivity, and that's always been there.
No, even for someone like Shyam, you know, this whole gap between reaching the public, being true to your story, being true to the ideation, your craft, the aesthetics of filmmaking, how did it affect him? Because he always tried to bridge that gap. He wanted the love of the public, yet he wanted to be true to his craft and his sense of filmmaking. How does that balance get? Because it's a very hard balance, and it's not always appreciated. A Rishikesh Mukherjee, a Gulzar, a Bimal Roy, they are that kind of middle of the path.
They all had their, what should I say, their strengths. So for example, I'm really fortunate. I had 2 days of work with Rishikesh Mukherjee on a project that got shelved. But his sense of humor, even at the most horrible time or crisis, treating it lightly as a joke, it's an incredible quality. He had that. With Shyam Babu, it was the relationships in the story. The smallest character will stand out because he'll give that actor or that character some importance or make you feel important. That you may be there in 2 scenes, but you're not just the maid. You are listening to everything that the husband and wife are talking, and it affects you. So you make that actor feel important even in an insignificant role, if I may say so.
So let's come to this, because this was his greatest, I think, gift to cinema. Nasruddin, Shabana, Om, Kulbhushan, Anand, yourself, some great, great actors nurtured through him.
That confidence to people like Jennifer in Junoon, who had left acting and then come back, and then to sort of get Nafisa Ali, who's here from Delhi. I was hoping she'd be here anyway.
Nafisa and I am.
I'm saying, and if you really look at Shyam Babu's filmography, he is the only filmmaker in the country, if you see the arc of his films, can give you a wonderful, fully encompassing social, economic, political structure of our country through the ages.
But let's focus on the actors and how he nurtured each. What special quality did he give to make a Shabana?
Neville, for me, the most important thing was trust. For me personally, because here, let's say, after Suraj Ka Satwa Ghoda, I can only give you my example. And then within a year, you know, I thought I was playing this revolutionary Kachalya in making of Mahatma, which is what I had been asked to do. And then suddenly there were makeup tests and all, but I never took it seriously, because all the, you know, the wonderful senior actors, Nasiruddin, Paresh Rawal, Annu Kapoor, they were all doing the test for the lead role. So I wondered how suddenly he called me and says, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm not in town. come on, you're doing Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. And I was just stupefied. I said, what? I'm doing Kachalle, I thought you said. No, come back. And we started shooting in South Africa in June. And this was March, so I thought, how would I prepare? There's no time.
So what's the nature of this trust? How does that trust be handed over with credibility and love? What's the nature of his personality that does this?
You know, again, I'm coming back to one is, because he's somewhere patiently watching. I think he's also watching what you are contributing as an actor. And then that trust kind of builds up. He feels if he's giving you that framework, you know, and then he had this beauty of allowing you, you know, to let the reins go and allowing you to kind of paint without you going out of that boundary.
And did it change over the years? Did you see different facets of his directorial?
For me, because for me the trust just kept building, because here was this man, and normally in our industry, you know, you get kind of typecast because of image and things like that. And he was constantly throwing challenge after challenge at me. So that means, my God, what trust he had that from this making of the Mahatma immediately came a Sardari Begum where I was playing this pimp. And it was great for me as an actor to sort of maybe remove the togas of that good Samaritan and get into Sardari Begum. That can only come from trust.
So let's come to you. You did Maine Gandhi Ko Nahi Mara, I think with Janu. What was the main difference between Janu's concept of directorial approach to actors and Shyam's?
I think Janu left a lot to us as actors to figure it out.
Shyam didn't?
No, his framework was very clear. You went out of that framework and all, he'd be sure to catch on and say, not that, I don't want that.
What defines that framework then? His vision of the film?
His vision of on where to take jo hum utar chadhav kehte hain, no? That he would be aware of. That I don't want you to take this scene to that level, because remember there's this scene coming after that and there you can lose your cool. So the arc is there in him. Or sometimes he would ask quietly that, is there a reason why you're doing this? And if I'm giving him an answer and he's convinced, he'd say, yeah. Or in the rehearsal, if I'm trying something out, he'd say, yeah, I like that, do that. I think that works. So do this, you know. So that's what, that awareness or sensitivity to what an actor, sometimes he may have rehearsed the scene differently. That Rajit, okay, I was sitting here, and when I rehearse, I said, sir, no, I feel like getting up and going there. He'll change it if it works. He'll change the lighting, he'll ask the cameraman, no, he's not going to sit here. What he's doing works better. And there's something that will change the dynamics, he'll change it.
And Janu, even though it was one film only you worked with him,
Yeah.
what was your sense of that relationship?
I had a wonderful time with him, because somewhere I think he had trusted me from the beginning. Because of maybe of what I had been through and what I had worked. So he kind of left it to me, but I would occasionally ask him a question here and there, and he was there. It's not that he was not there.
What was his main difference in the way he approached cinema to Shyam?
Maybe the visual was equally important for him, you know. Shyam Babu the actor is more important.
And then someone like a Sanjay Leela Bansali, who's
The visual is
absolutely
very
different.
important. If you see his visuals, they are stunning. Each frame is a picture portrait. His sense of color, his sense of sound is incredible. So that gets highlighted.
And Shyam never privileged these values because of his realist.
Integrated, but somehow the storytelling becomes more important with him.
And with regard to the other actors that we had mentioned, someone like a Kulbhushan Kharbanda, who people, you know, you acted with him a couple of times, no? Or no? I can't remember actually.
Well, we never really had a chance to act together, you know, but I've seen his work.
You've definitely worked with.
With Nasir, I worked on stage twice, never on film. We did a Molière play when I was just 2 years out of college called Imaginary Invalid. And then he asked me to do a walk in the woods with him, which is just the two of us on stage.
What was that interaction like?
It was really wonderful because I never expected again him to, call me and says, I'm looking for an actor to work with me. And I need somebody, he said, whom I can trust, and also somebody who's not in awe of me, otherwise it won't work.
So what makes him a truly great actor? I assume he is one in your eyes.
He was a great inspiration and is an inspiration. Even when I was in college, he did a workshop, and I've never forgotten because he taught us the importance of entry and exit, and that has been ingrained in me. And even after that, many years after that, when I've conducted workshops, I've always used some of those exercises with many more about how the surrounding atmosphere and feel and the mood can affect an actor, from the smallest thing of footwear or a sense of smell or something. The biggest thing I've learned from him is to be constantly at it. You know, when we talk about a process of rehearsal, there are a lot of actors who will say, yeah, come, let's do it in 1 week, and then no. If it's 1 month, Nasir will say, let's work 3 months. So then the foundation that you're building and the process that you're working on to arrive at the final result becomes so much more, not only grounded, but what word should I use?
It's deeper. Slightly.
Deeper and stronger and consistent, because you're exploring every aspect of a line or a scene before you arrive at, and therefore the final whole becomes really strong.
So let's come to that second point I'd raised, and that is a great actor who does not get to the level of celebrity and glamour in the eyes of the public, but is, with his craft or her craft, the very best they can be.
Yeah.
And in a country like India, that gap is such a wide gap.
Yeah.
How does the inner world of yours struggle with that, or accept it, or recognize it, or deal with it?
It's been tough on that because I have pushed myself not to be complacent. That's another thing to learn from Nasiruddin, you know. And now when you're working with a lot of actors, I feel the moment they've hit some aspect of being successful or known or achieved, as you said, a so-called celebrity status, they become complacent. Even the best of actors who've started from the stage and now who are doing well on film, I won't take names, but when I asked one of them, are you ready to do a play together? And he said, nahi yaar, abhi to mushkil ho jayega. Itni rehearsal kaun karega?
No, but you see, that is put in, that's a different craft.
Yeah.
But just the fact of, it's about public perception, and the way public perception can be taken in a certain direction, sometimes very superficially, sometimes artificially, sometimes without justice. Or do you believe that in the long run, the public gets it right? Or is it so much to do with the times, the ecology, the infrastructure, the knowledge? Because the public doesn't get it right most of the time.
But I still think they are perceptive, no? It depends also what you offer.
Perfect point.
You know, what do you offer? I mean, there are 7, 8 varieties of apples in the market, let's say. If I don't pick that juiciest one and put it there in front of them to see, they will never know that this is there.
But let's just play devil's advocate for a few minutes. There are so many films. Let's take someone like a Dipti Neville, where you were in that lovely film about some do paise ki khud char aane ki. Yeah. And she was part of mainstream. There was a period where, with Amol Palekar and a few others, she's about to be. Then she also is a very deep person in a way, a poet, a thinker, painter, absolutely. And you don't get the celebrity quotient, so to speak. I am concerned for the following reason, because in India, the transformation from art to entertainment It's a very quick compromise. Most people don't sustain with their craft, and as a result, they don't help build the ecosystem.
That bridge or that balance.
Absolutely. And therefore, the sensitivity of the public is undermined because they get used to a certain kind of pandering to what is popular, what is easy to absorb, what does not require great thought. Now,
Before you go there, just to answer that, but you know, a great example for that to counter that is, or to align with that, is a film like 12th Fail. 12th Fail, now with Viduvino Chopra did. Now, there are no stars, there's no, and it's still out there in the theatres on that big screen, but it's the storytelling, the script that engages you. And anybody at any level, whether it's the man on the street or whether the man sitting in Taj Mahal Hotel.
because it's one of our great struggles of understanding how do you reach out to an audience which is so disparate, so different, so many small, huge gaps in opportunity, what they're exposed to, the levels of their financial background, their educational opportunities, the exposure to other parts of the world. And yet you know that we all have some common deep love and understanding for what is good, what is knowledgeable, what is entertaining, what is meaningful. We all have that, and yet somewhere it doesn't materialize. Lives go by and they stay in that same place, unable to go to another level of appreciation. And it's tiring. Most people have given up on it, that we are not going to change the system. Parallel cinema, what we called, you know, even a great director like Ray, struggled with it. Ghatak, Mrinal Sen, so many, Shyam, Mani, Kumar, Ketan. So there's at least 30 great film directors who wanted to be true to their inner sense of being true to themselves and the love of the public. And that bridge was not maintained unless a certain stardom, a certain energy, a certain budget, and a certain compromise of the aesthetic frameworks were brought in. The only one jump I feel was in music. That music was capable of reaching out, unlike so many other things. So someone like Gulzar, to a large extent. But you tell me your thoughts.
I hope I'm not wrong in this conclusion, but having thought these same questions in my head over and over again, I feel whatever it is and whatever scale it may be, whether it's a painting, whether it's music, any form of the performing arts, cinema, theatre, if there is no emotional connect somewhere, it won't reach out. However big a budget may be, however good your story may be or may not be, we put in the knowledge, we put in the arcs, all those externals, but are you able to get an emotional connect? Sometimes, let's say with just a photograph or a painting, it just holds you. Why? It could be that tone of orange that has just connected with you.
So therefore, the nature of the intelligence of the Indian public is it's an emotional intelligence. We are very profound people emotionally. A certain intellectual, conceptual intelligence has never been nurtured. It's never been privileged.
That has to be also connected to through emotional connect.
Absolutely, but the kind of cinema which we called at some stages parallel cinema, which was not there, had the dominance of the intellectual over the emotional connect, is what you're saying?
But it still has, some of it still works today because of an emotional connect.
Absolutely.
These very same films you're saying, they may have been part of parallel cinema, but why are they popular even today? Because there's an emotional
Because
connect.
the public has also evolved.
Sure, fair
public-
enough. And today when they look at it, we are calling it a classic, like a Kagaz Ke Phool.
Well, look, Kagaz Ke Phool is
Still had a very intellectual and, oh, ye kya banaya. If you read the history of Kagaz Ke Phool, they say, pata nahi kya banaya Guru Dutt ne. But now when you see, we are calling it a classic, there's an emotional connect. And
No, let's take the Ankus, the Mirch Masalas, those kind of films which at the time.
like Jaane Bhi Do Yaro. You know, I mean, it's it's funny, but there's a huge emotional connect with those characters.
So let's come to another thing that I just had mentioned. You working in many languages, Marathi, Bengali, Punjabi, Malayalam, obviously English. What have you seen as the main differences in those cinemas? You know, when you speak to a more local, smaller audience, they obviously know that it's a different community. Does that change the nature of your relationship with the film, or you are the same irrespective of language?
No, I see personally, I love languages, Neville. So I have a special connect with different languages. I've always loved languages. And whenever the offer from a different language comes, it challenges me. It allows me to stretch my rubber band. So because it's challenging, I jump at it. So that's a very personal thing. On a generic level, you know, Bengali cinema, I found, whatever my little experience, they come up with great stories. The stories on paper sometimes are fantastic. That one page can just absorb you and hold you. Maybe it's in the execution that things go wrong.
What's the nature of that execution which falters in your view?
It's a storytelling. Each director has his own way of telling a story. And if you're not able to tell a story that connects with an audience or a larger audience, then it doesn't work. My experience with working in the South is that they are far more organized than any other part of India in terms of just their logistical planning. And it really helps because it gives you a sense of discipline.
Does that make better films in your view?
Not necessarily, but at least a sense of discipline, because I come from the theatre and we pride ourselves in that sense of discipline. So that makes you feel good that, yeah, you know, I'm here at 8 o'clock and we are ready to start by 9.
So let's come to that challenge of the actor and your role in making up the Mahatma. You won a national award for that role. Let's forget Gandhiji for a minute and just the role as an actor, as a creative mind. What were the main things that you had to sort of come to terms with, change within yourself, understand deeper to take on that role?
You know, when I went to meet Shyam Babu in that first meeting, he gave me a book. Rajit, here. This is what I want. That was not the script. That was my experiments with truth. And he said, we'll work out the externals. We had makeup tests and all. I'll mention that later. But he said, this book tells you about the man, particularly the period of 20 years that we are shooting, of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi in South Africa, not the Mahatma. See what he went through, what is in his mind, and that's what I want you to imbibe. So that first instruction was so sharp and clear. So that became my Bible.
So what were the 3, 4 first things that you imbibed that this was pivotal to MK Gandhi's life?
For me was the fact that he would practice what he preached. Always starting with any change first within himself, or trying anything out on himself first before, let's say, telling X, Y, or Z. That was a great lesson for me to imbibe, which I still hold in my heart today. You know, his almost stubborn determination. It's not that he would not think things out. Maybe that was a lawyer brain in him. So he had thought things out. Then once he said it, no, this is how it will be. And then he just stuck to it, in spite of the brickbats at times. So whether it was dealing with the helping the indented labor in South Africa through the racial discrimination period, or the farmers, or even when he would apply things to his own life, his own wife. No, I think we should start cleaning our own toilet.
That came a bit later.
But these are the things that affected me from that look at the thought. She said, no, I'm not going to clean the toilet. We have people to do that. He said, no, then you go. He told her literally, then you leave the house. I think in the book, Kasturba says he's mad. He's asking me to leave the house because I'm not cleaning the toilet. But he wants to see that can we do it ourselves first before we tell the others to do it. So these are the things that left an impression. I think somewhere, although in the book it's not directly mentioned, but it's very indirect. His belief in what we now call naturopathy or organic means. That is something that I believe in. My belief got strengthened because of working on this film. His son had 104 fever from what they could gauge. He didn't call the doctor, he said, put the mud packs. Now that's a slower process of healing. And she said, what if your son dies? Are you mad? He said, trust me.
What's in his mind the advantage of that organic healing process?
I don't know, he doesn't say that, but I'm assuming that why should we depend on outside factors like chemicals to heal when we have to find the solution, A, mentally within ourselves, it's the willing of it and using whatever natural means is there, because that's what's coming from time immemorial.
The great thing about Gandhiji to a large extent was his mind over matter attitude to life, which was the heart of his stubbornness, the heart of so much that he believed in, and the struggle of always first do unto yourself as you would expect.
And then that is what led to his belief in nonviolence. I think these were the starting points which finally, of peaceful settlement, if I may use a very timid term, that if we can talk things out.
And as an actor, how did you imbibe this quality? What did you change within yourself to express that? Or was it there already in you?
Yeah, I think maybe somewhere it was deep down there within me, but it just got accentuated after reading the book and after playing him. And over the years, these thoughts have become even more strengthened. I've become more stubborn in a very good way. I don't look at it negatively, maybe others do. Always. You know, but you know that more than I do. He's a jeeta jata example hai yahan pe.
But the fact is that this role, what else did it demand of you, which you were not at that able to do, but then you found a way to do
The
it?
demand was to understand him. And I remember even on the first day of shoot, I was not afraid, a little apprehensive, because huge burden on my shoulders, playing father of the nation, people would compare this, that. But again, Shyam Babu said, forget Attenborough's Gandhi. You're not supposed to think of the Mahatma. That's not what we're doing. We are trying to understand what went through his mind. So just focus on that period of what could have gone through his mind. What was he thinking about? So therefore, the book of my experiments with truth became even more important for me, because he had mentioned all these things of what he went through in that book.
So let's try to just go a bit deep on an internal struggle of a creative mind representing another great creative mind, and thinking about what you think is the truth, what is the public perception, because here is a character who everyone thinks they understand, they know something about. You know, 100 people who come into this exhibition, 99 when they leave will have realized that I did not understand Gandhiji. And this is just one exhibition. Okay? So a role to do that, and you get one chance in a life. How did that struggle of public perception, your understanding, and then putting it into action, how did you sort of have that dialogue?
I don't know, it's all kind of connected, Neville, but I don't think I have any tangible answer.
Did you think about what the public thought? Never.
But now that's coming, because I've been having so many sessions with students and institutions about, you know, making of the Mahatma, and you'd be amazed how people react. And for me, the reaction of children is very important.
Tell us.
So for example, in Bangalore, an 8-year-old stood up and said, "Sir, Gandhi was a very bad man. He pulled his wife's hair and dragged her." Now see the impact It was very difficult. I had to think very hard how to answer this question. Because he's looking at it, his mother and father. He said, my father would never do that to my mother. See the impact on that 8-year-old. So I had to explain to him why he was doing it. He was setting an example. He didn't mean to hurt his wife.
But you were justifying it? You thought
Not justifying, I had to explain to him why he's doing it. I didn't get into any justification. Just to tell him that the same thing, that he was trying everything himself before he would preach something. This was the same toilet thing about the cleaning of the toilets incidents, which this young fellow, can you imagine from the entire film, that's the thing that struck him. So it was important to explain to him just why he was doing it. Then you think what you want to think.
So let's come to a very important part of being that kind of human being, because there's inside a deep impatience, there's a deep frustration, and yet there's clarity, and there's that struggle that I have a deep inner equanimity. I need to express it with the world to inspire them to go to a higher level in themselves, and yet it doesn't happen. And it took a lifetime, and still. So how did you, what do you do to bring out that frustration in the film? Or did you not?
No, those things never struck me at then. My whole focus just became, Shyam Babu said, just focus on this. And the other little external things is what we worked upon, whether it was a makeup or putting wax behind my ears to just give me, I don't look anywhere near his pictures, but to come close to some sort of a physical semblance, I had to do that. Luckily for me, I walk very fast and he walked very fast. So that's not something I had to rehearse. Strangely, my arms are not in proportion to my body, and we found that the same thing was with Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. And when I was in school and we had to take, when we are doing our march past, we have to take distance. So I would not do this, I had to do this. And my house captain said, when I did this, he said, "Kya samajhta hai tu? Gandhi hai kya? Aise kar." The distance is not matching with the others. Never knew I'd be playing him then. That time I was reprimanded. So,
You said that Gandhi hai kya?
yeah, what do you think? Because it was known that he had long arms.
I did not know.
So I said, so I had to do this and the other boys would do this.
I don't want to go on personal connotations to that. There's a whole lot of other links to that idea, but
So little things that, somewhere hamari Sanskriti ke, like how many things he would do only with his right hand. Now if you go back, you think there are other meanings of that, but these were things. So for example, you eat only with your right hand. You offer things to somebody only with your right hand, never with the left hand. Now this is something that I learned while I was working on the film. And he was doing that, and Shyam Babu told me, no. Khana bhi jab ek scene hai to right hand se khate hain, because we use a left hand to wash our bums, so never with the left hand. They have scientific reasons, but we think aise hi kar rahe hain. Nahi hai.
okay. Well, let's take a 5-minute break and bring in the audience, and we'll come back at the end. Any thoughts, any questions, anything on what has been shared? Anyone would like to make a comment or any point of view? Anything by anyone?
कि जो जीवित व्यक्ति हैं, जो जीवित व्यक्ति हैं, चाहे वो जवाहरलाल नेहरू हो या मोहनदास करमचंद गांधी हो, वो सीमित रहते हैं ना. अभी I can't show Jawaharlal Nehru with bell bottoms and a swagger. I can't let my imagination break those. So उनकी जो पोशाक है फिल्मोग्राफी में या हमारे इतिहास में, वो रेफरेंसेस हैं. तो बेसिकली जो जीवित लोग हैं उनकी रेफरेंसेस लेकर आपको वो सिंचाई करनी है. जो काल्पनिक कैरेक्टर है, जो मानिक मुल्ला है, चाहे आपने इतिहास में पढ़ा हो, उपन्यास में पढ़ा हो, धर्मवीर भारती की उपन्यास में, लेकिन आप अपनी कल्पना को वहां सीमित न भी रखें, it doesn't matter. It is totally unlimited. You can create whatever character you want because they are all a figment of your imagination. You may have a fixed image. You mentioned Byomkesh Bakshi. There are so many images that people have of Byomkesh Bakshi if you go around in Bengal, because it's an integral part of their literature. And even now, every year there's a new Byomkesh Bakshi being made with some new perspective or the other. So you can keep changing that. he has never said that he wasn't flawed. In fact, quite the opposite. He says, I am human and I am also, I have also made errors or mistakes. It's we who have given him the title of Mahatma, not he. I think Tagore did or whatever. Anyway, I'm not going to that. My point is that yes, he is flawed. But we also have to see what we can, I feel also what we can learn from him. I'm not trying to justify, ma'am, what you're saying, because I may not personally agree with that also on a personal level. But for me, what is important is what can I imbibe from him?
And, but look, I have a very different take. There's no human, there's no living soul that is not flawed. It's the very nature of consciousness. Consciousness is full of everything. Evil, goodness, the greatest virtues, the greatest nobility, the greatest foolishness, the greatest vulgarity is in the nature of consciousness. There's no lines. Those lines are created by society. Those lines and demarcations of behavior, attitude, temperament, decency, non-decency, these are human constructs over time, and there is no reason in the world, no reason that any human being does not have all of it. All of it is in us. It's our choices at different stages, and when you try to be true to yourself, if you are genuinely going to try to be true to the nature of your consciousness, to the nature of existence, to the nature of living a full life, to the nature of knowing the truth of whatever life befalls, you are going to make fundamental mistakes. There is no way around it because it's an experimental process. The answers are not laid out. You are finding out those answers. You are going to be as capable of being vile and vicious in moments until suddenly that realization hits you that the relentlessness or the passion or the commitment to this value needs to be qualified. This attitude needs to be qualified. This temperament needs to be changed. My inner energy needs to be brought into check. I cannot push it the way I want to because there are other people. There's collateral damage. There's a whole lot of issues that get imbibed. So Gandhi's greatest strength and his abiding lesson is this absolute pursuit of trying to be the best version of himself. And along that path, he made so many mistakes.
And he says it. He says, these are my experiments with truth. And my wife and my family had to bear the brunt of it. And because of that, I still respect them. Had there been somebody else, she would have left me and gone. He gives her full credit for bearing with all his nonsense.
No, I would have been happy if she would have not borne with him also. That should have been, that was her choice and that was Kastuba's journey. Yeah. And someone should go deeper into that journey also and those choices she made. Today the woman would have radically different levels of tolerance, patience, abiding by that kind of experiment. That no one's life's journey should be at the cost of someone else's life's journey. Sure. And that is a dilemma which is rooted on the values of a society. That's got nothing to do with the integral truth of consciousness. If we were living in a different time, in a different age, with different regulatory frameworks, the mind would evolve in a different way. So, just to answer that, because it's a very important way where I've seen millions of people across the world try to chastise or criticize Gandhiji, and the fact is there's nothing wrong with criticizing a human being. There's nothing wrong in recognizing the flaws of another human being. At the end of the day, we see what was the good that came, what was the inspiration that came, and we can balance both, but one does not negate the other. But are we sweeping it under the carpet? I don't think we are sweeping it under the carpet. Not here. Here we are not sweeping anything under the carpet. The whole point is there's no, we are nobodies to create what he has done. His work is very clear. There's 100 volumes of his written work. There's a lifetime of action. And his own children, the greatest critics of his life were his own children. But that is the price that has to be paid, because life has only so much time, only so much energy, only so much. I give you a smaller example of where the conflict is. I started building a sanctuary for abandoned dogs and cats about 14 years ago. I started with one small cat. And over the time, given my nature, I today have about 300 plus children, and I look after at least another 400. I do more than probably most people will ever do in a lifetime. But the only thing I go to bed with every day is I am not doing enough. God, I couldn't give time to read today. I couldn't give enough time to Chintu. I was unable to see that before it happened. Because that is the journey of a human being who, first of all, will never be in sync with the limitations of life. Secondly, the heart will always be far faster and bigger than whatever the mind and resources are capable of doing. And Gandhiji, more than any other soul probably in the world, was pushed to a level of expectation and inspirational energy across so many different human beings. So yes, I would forgive much, much more in a Gandhiji than other people who have claimed to be who they are, but that in no way excuses.
What about all the other people for whom this man in so many other countries has been an inspiration? My big fear today is with the next generation pulling out things from social media and just pulling the pants down of some of our, whatever, freedom struggle fighters. And it's so easy to do that. And I've had to tell some of those youngsters, what have you done for your community, your country, your city? Nothing. How dare you open your mouth and just pull the pants down of people without studying to see the larger whole?
That's my point.
No one.
Rajit,
One second.
Getting upset and hypocritically.
There's no one upset here. No one is upset. We are given. One second, Rajit. We are given a very clear answer. What you have just said, Ranjana, is Gandhiji's focus was the whole. His focus was never the flaw. If there is one great flaw in any human being who looks at the whole, is that they realize they can never be the master of each specific area. And the more that world tries to see the whole, the less will be your ability and your expertise to be masters in other areas, because you don't have the time, you don't have the energy. There are many other people whose lives dedicated to that part. And therefore the niyat, the intention of our life, has to be also given as much importance as someone else from the outside. It's on anyone. Forget Gandhiji for a minute. Anybody. You take the judgment on any life of any human being. Today we have become so critical without having the humility to try to understand the nature of that life. Are you telling me that the intention of the life does not matter? Or are you saying that it's not enough to justify certain acts? Which I'm in agreement with on that. But I'm not in agreement to say that it has to be negated.
Yeah, but it is dangerous. It is dangerous if we are only just being critical. It is dangerous. I agree. It is dangerous. If we only see one side, then it's dangerous, no?
One second. Let's just, we'll move on. There's a gentleman in the yellow t-shirt there, and then Mandakini.
So when this role was offered to you, It was in mid 1990s. So, especially keeping in mind the kind of revered status which Gandhiji has in Indian society, and also the kind of political upheavals which were going on, or political transition which was going on in 1990s in India. So, did you have any kind of nervousness or fear in portraying this character, that how ultimately it is going to be received by the public at large?
No, that's not my concern as an actor. My concern as an actor is to be true to what I need to convey through the director's vision. What the director wants of me is my job.
You know, you guys, when you began, you were talking about adapting to Indian English when you started working in theatre. Can you talk about that? Like, was there some, because I often get asked that, you know, because I feel that I also started reading a little bit of poetry by Nazim Ezekiel and stuff like that. So when you said that you started doing your original plays and in English, how did you adapt all this idea of Indian English? How does it arrive? Like, is it because of also that, you know, when you go to different parts of India, people will speak English?
It's just about being relatable to the kind of English that you and I speak in our everyday life, you know. So when we, for example, if you read an original play, it's set somewhere in England or somewhere in America, and if you had to kind of set it here, so for example, I'll give you, we took special permission and special rights about 12 Angry Men. Now it's a play written in the 50s, but it's still so apt today with all the prejudices that we face. It's still relatable. But in order to make it more relatable, we took permission from them whether we could just use Indian names.
No, but even in that, the cinema of that time, like Shyamji's cinema, you guys spoke in English. Then if you have to take this...
But it depends on the character.
But then you take it to the Western, so isn't there's a difference? Like there's like an American accent? And
No, why? That should not care, because if we are doing it in Hindi, and if that character is speaking English, he will speak, if he's set in Delhi, he will speak a different kind of English. अगर वो गांव में होगा उसकी इंग्लिश थोड़ी टूटी फूटी होगी. So that is all on characterization.
And it is also a little bit of our colonial past, right? That we speak in English.
Of course, we've studied in English, so that also comes from something that we've inherited.
Any other questions, anyone?
4 or 5 years you've been saying that you're revisiting it, you're going out, talking about it. So just something about what is it? Do you feel some change that has come? And the second is, when you're going out and talking to people, what kind of reaction are you getting? You're going into various towns and places and talking to young children. What is their understanding?
The reactions are different in every institution because it depends what you pick out, you know. And every student will pick out one aspect that may not appeal to you, which is fair enough. As long as I hope there is something in there to appeal to you or to make you think.
You have your conversation, they see the film?
Yes.
So they perforce had to see the film, and therefore they have some...
You know, there are some institutions will only show it to the 11th and 12th. Some are technical institutions. So that the institute decides.
Okay, let's just go back and close the conversation. You're now 60 plus. You're a pensioner without a pension, as am I. How do you see the stage where you are at this, as a creative mind? What are the main priorities you have to keep on being yourself? And, you know, to the relationship with the world. You know, my relationship with the world is radically changed. You know, I'm one of those people who, people say he loves humanity, but he really doesn't have patience for human beings. Now, you know, there's I think it happens to all of us over time, especially those who engage with trying to change a system. There's a loss of faith, and we go to animals more, we go to nature more, we go within ourselves. We slowly cut down our obligations with dialogue. Where do you find yourself?
I think COVID taught me a lot. And, you know, yes, we had tragedy, we had heartburn, heartbreak, but I think it was a lesson. And as you're saying, it's not a question of slowing down because I'm 60, it's also about focusing how I want to spend my time. And I think now I allow myself more of me time with myself, even travel and nature. I think I owe it to myself instead of just being, and that's made me more patient by spending more time with nature and spending more time with myself.
And the nature, because, you know, Ranjana raises a fundamental point in all dialogues today, the nature of being critical. See, I don't think there's a desire to be critical for the sake of criticism. Sure. It's that criticism to make a better society, sure, to make a better humanity. Each of us question who we are, what we are, with a greater sense of, you know, taken to task rather than, as rightly says, sweeping under the carpet. Yeah. So when you look back now, 40 years of creativity, what still burns in you as deeply as it was when I was singing, you were singing and I was dancing?
I don't know about burns deeply, but maybe I felt I should have spent more time with attempting a few more sports, which I didn't do at that time. That does kind of niggle at me at times.
What else? Any other things that you still think you have a chance of doing?
I will do. I don't look back with too much of negativity today. If you'd asked me that 30 years ago, maybe, but not today, because I think each thing happens for a certain reason. Yeah. And it only makes you stronger or makes you grow or makes you evolve. There's a reason for it to happen. There's a reason of me being here today to interact. There's a reason.
Well, on that wonderful note, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.